we all just left from JoJo's record shop after that big blow up. But that was crazy because whoever it was that was trying to take the battery out of JoJo's car, you know, I don't think they succeeded because I think he said he fired one round and the guy took off and left. So, you know, that was a crazy incident. But dude was mad because he got accused of it, though. I would have been mad too because, especially if I know I didn't do it. But that just goes to show you, this is one thing that needs to be educational to everybody listening to this channel. And the reason I'm saying that is because you heard the dude say it was, it was dark out, but he could see the Shell gas station jacket. That's all he could really tell, you know. So the thing is, with all you folks that's, a lot of people be wearing the same kind of shirts, same kind of jackets, same kind of Jordans, stuff like that. This needs to be an educational situation for you because it's good to have your own look and don't follow in a trend trying to look, when something comes out, a lot of times when something comes out, everybody's wanting to get the same thing. And sometimes that's not good because where I come from, this incident right here proves it that you could be accused of something. And in this case, it was just a battery, but dude was going to shoot anyways over a car battery. But in this case, it just goes to show you that somebody could commit a crime and somebody could not see anything but just a jacket or maybe a certain pair of Jordans. They could spot them or something like that. So that's why I'm saying it's good to have your own look and not to try to everybody dress similar to same, because somebody could commit a crime. God forbid it'd be a very, very serious crime, you know what I mean? And then you got folks looking for you, but the only thing they know to look for, they don't know what the person looks like. They just know what kind of shoes he had on or what kind of jacket he had on or something like that. And then they looking for this person, which could be thousands of people. You know what I mean? So that's the reason I say this should be a little educational for people because people could be out there doing crime, and if they just know the jacket that they had on or a certain kind of hat they had on or shoes that they had on, but they really couldn't see the person, this could put you in a lot of danger without you even knowing it. You know what I mean? But anyways, he's lucky that that's all that happened is dude kicked him out of the record shop. Because if he said he had a weapon aimed at him when he was trying to get the battery, which it wasn't him, dude, in Detroit City at that time, he could have shot him inside the record store. I mean, you know what I mean? So he got lucky and he left, but dude just went off, and was explaining why he didn't want him in the record shop. But that's crazy, And I don't know when he caught up with his older brother if they had words or what happened, after the fact. But I do know when we left, he was pissed and he said he thought it was his older brother that did that. But he really wasn't for sure because, I mean, I'm sure there was like, just in our area alone, maybe, let's see, anywhere from 12 to 8 different folks just in our area that work at Shell gas station that had Shell gas station jackets. You know what I mean? So it possibly could have been any one of them. And then another thing is, it could have been somebody just had a Shell gas station jacket and not even worked at Shell gas station, or used to work at Shell gas station or something like that, just to throw people off. So who knows. And I don't think they ever found out exactly who did that. Because for one, this guy, if he was going to actually trying to steal a battery, and then knows that the owner shot around, basically, I guess maybe just to scare the thief off. Because, at that time, you really didn't want to approach a thief because you didn't know if they was carrying a weapon either. So, with him doing that, that's just, that's crazy because, and I bet just throughout time, JoJo probably never figured out who did it, but he probably still thought it was that dude that he kicked out of the record shop. But that was crazy because what I was getting to a minute ago is dude wouldn't have tried to steal the guy's battery the night before and then walk into his record shop the next day with the same jacket on. You know what I mean? JoJo should have thought about that and thought, nah, this dude ain't that scandalous. But anyways, this dude that JoJo kicked out of the record shop, later on down the road, he's the same dude that ran off with my girlfriend. And the way that happened is I was a young cat, and I want to say I was like 12 maybe, and this dude was like 16, 17. And what had happened is I was going with this chick that was older than me, and he had picked her up and, went riding with her and stuff like that. They probably smoked, because back then smoking weed was big. And not saying it ain't big now, but I'm just saying back then that's what the deal was. And this dude had a car, a driver's license, a job at Shell gas station and stuff like that. So, and she was an older girl anyway, so I guess he picked her up and then they hooked up. But that was a bad decision on her part because she ended up, and this is what her cousin told me, down the road. He said that she ended up stealing money from her dad out of her dad's bedroom. He has a big wheel at Mayfield, and stole money from her dad, ran away with this dude. Then they went to Kentucky, And then, they rented an apartment and stuff like that. But she got homesick, and I think the money was running out too. But then her cousin was telling me they had came back, but before they came back, she called her dad and said she was coming back home because she basically ran away. But he had took her with him, and I think he was saying that she told her dad, you know, talked her dad into not pressing charges on him or something like that, but he had to pay the money back. So they ended up coming back. She got home, and I was laughing about the situation because I just felt she kind of did me bad, even though I was a young dude. She did me bad because she took off with him, but he just had more to offer, you know what I mean? As far as a job and license and a car and all that. And anyways, I laughed about the situation. And but when it got back, they had to split up. I'm sure they snuck around and seen each other a few times, but maybe not. Maybe they split up and stayed split up. I don't really know, but I do know that a dude told me that the guy that she ran away with, he ended up getting hooked on crack. And back in them days, a lot of people did get hooked on crack and just ruined their life. But some of them redeemed themselves and was able to leave it alone and bounce back. But some of them wasn't able to bounce back. You know what I mean? So that's a tragedy in itself, really. But I never laughed about the dude being on crack. I just laughed about the situation where they had they stole the money, caught herself running away together. And I don't know if he talked her into it or she just knew it was her idea or something. I really don't know this whole scoop, but I do know she took the money from her dad, took off, stayed gone. I don't know how long they actually stayed gone, but then they came back, and it was just a bunch of horse shit, really, because she could have avoided all that, you know. But I just thought it was crazy, but I felt some kind of way too because dude had ran off with my girl, even though I was a young dude. I think I was like 12 or whatever, but I was still mad about it. And but after I heard that, it was crazy. And then I don't know if dude just started smoking crack. I know he smoked weed, but I don't know if somebody turned him on to crack or when him and her broke up. At that time he could have, fell in love with her or whatever. Who knows? But that's just a story that I heard. That I do know that I was on Trumbull and Warren one time at the apartment building, and this is after the fact. And he was beside the house, and he had his head under the water faucet. And he was wetting his hair, and the first thing I asked my friend, which was his nephew, I asked him. I was like, "What's up with dude? Is he drunk or something?" And then he was like, "No, man, he's been smoking crack." And I was like, "Oh shit, that ain't good." You know what I mean? I knew right off top that wasn't good. So hopefully today, dude has got away from that and he's living good and all that. But it was a mess back in the day. But anybody that that would happen to, besides me, because I'm a different kind of dude, would probably say that guy, I hope he gets everything he deserves. You know what I mean? But I'm not like that. You know what I mean? I was mad because he ran away with my chick, but I was a young dude and stuff, and there was many more to come. As far as I was concerned, and but I kind of felt sorry for dude, when his nephew told me he was smoking crack and stuff like that. But anyways, hopefully he got past that and he's all right today. And if he is all right today and he hears this video, he knows what he did. You know what I mean? But I do remember he was, when I was on Livernois, I was actually, my mom, I used to live on Livernois and Plummer, but I actually got my own apartment off of Toledo on Manson. And when I did that, I got me a car, and it was a car I bought off my aunt. It was an LTD4. And I drove over to my mom's house. We'd pull in the front of the house or in the back of the house, mostly in the back, because that's where everybody just hung out at. And one time he was over there, and I pulled up in my car, and he was like, "Hey, man, you seen Kerry?" And this is the first time I seen him in years because, he's from over on Trumbull. And I said, "No, I ain't seen him." I said, "How's he doing?" And he said, "He's all right." He said, "He's got a car just like yours, but it's blue." And I was like, "Oh, yeah?" And then later we all hooked up together and stuff like that. And Kerry is a friend of mine, and his brother, Bo, is a friend of mine. And but anyways, he had told me that, and that was the last time I seen him over there, on Livernois. But by that time I was just, way past, what had happened a long time ago on Elm Street. But that was, I was surprised to see him. And then he was telling me about Kerry had the same kind of car I had, stuff like that. And then we all hooked up, stuff like that. And then me and his younger brother, we hung out quite a bit, Bo. And one time we hanging out at a bar, at the Whistle Stop Bar on Livernois. And I meet this lady, and this lady asks me, she's got this real nice Buick Regal, and it's orange. And she asks me she's going to the Buckboard on 4th Street. It's another bar. And she asked me, do I want to go? And I said, well, I got my partner with me. And he said, well, you drive her car and I'll drive your car and we'll go down to the Buckboard. I was like, all right. So we go down there and we have some drinks and stuff like that. And then we leave there, we're on a back street because we're fixing to call it a night. We're on a back street. Me and her's in this car. He's burning tires up and down the block in my car. I don't know why he was doing that. I guess he's just playing around, but he did that, so somebody had called the police. So he ended up parking, and he got out of my car, and he's walking down the block. But the police come to the window of the car we was in, and he's pecking on the window and with the flashlight. So she rolls the window down because he's on the passenger side, and that's where she's at. And she hands him her license, but she's drunk. And she hands her license and says, here's my license, the registration. What the F you going to do about it? Like that. And I was like, oh, man. Because I thought she was going to be nice about it, but she was mad because the guy was pecking on her window, but she was drunk. So he just looked at the ID and he was like, hey, and this is how Detroit police was back then, you know. He said, hey, if y'all gonna, be making out or whatever, and we said we was just there talking, but he said, if y'all gonna be making out or something, y'all need to get a motel room. And he gave her the driver's license back and registration back, and then they left. And then here come my friend walking up the street on. I said, "Hey man, where's my car at?" And he was like, "I parked it around the corner because I seen the police coming." And I was like, "All right, well follow me because we're gonna get her to where she needs to go, and then we're gonna go home." And he was like, "All right, that's cool." And so that's what we did. But that was one incident I had with Bo from Detroit on Trumbull Avenue, and we wasn't on Trumbull Avenue. He's just from Trumbull Avenue, and but me and him had a lot of different scenarios, and but I'll give y'all one more about me and him. One time, me and Bo, and this is that dude I'm talking about, and this is Kerry's brother. He's me and him's hanging out. We pick up we pick up a friend of mine, Mike David, Sherry Soulsby's old man, and we pick him up and we're just hanging out because we're gonna go visit people, have drinks, stuff like that. That was the kind of thing to do in Detroit back in them days. And but he was my driver, and so we going around visiting people, having drinks, stuff like that. But we end up going to the old neighborhood, and Bo still lived over there, but I lived over on Manson off Toledo. And so we go to the old neighborhood. We go to Roger's store, and this is in my old neighborhood because Roger, he used to have drinks and stuff down there too. And that was our last stop, and we went and visit him for, I don't know, maybe a couple hours or whatever, and then we had left. But when we left, he went around the block to Grand River to Trumbull, and when he was turning on Trumbull, he turned too soon, and the car went over the curb, and the police was at the red light. So they made a U-turn and turned their lights on. So he asked me, he said, "Hey, you want me to dust them?" I was like, "No, dude." I said, make a right on Ash and Park. And I said, "Y'all be cool," and they let us go, And so he pulls out. They tell us all to get out the car, put our hands on the trunk and stuff like that. We do that. And then my friend Mike, he's yelling, because he's drunk. He's yelling, saying, "I know my rights. I know my rights." And the police officer hits him in the stomach with the big black flashlight, and he starts throwing up. And he said, "You ain't got no rights," And so at that point, he threw up, and they just let him do his thing while he was getting sick. And then they ended up telling us to lock the keys in the trunk, and we all had to walk. So we all had to walk, but we'd walk towards Scripps Park, which is, not too far down the Trumbull. And we get to Scripps Park, we're trying to figure out what we're going to do because it's a good ways to Livernois from there. We wasn't going to walk it. So my friends were like, "Well, how about we just lay down in the park and you could see, some outside of Scripps Park at the time. But at the time, you couldn't see all around outside the park like you can today. And because they used to have a brick wall that was high, but now they dropped that wall down and put a black fence along Trumbull. But anyways, laid down. The police circled around twice, and then they left. And they knew we wasn't, up to no good. We was just out having drinks and stuff like that. But anyways, the reason they said that is because I was drinking, Mike was drinking, and my friend was a driver. But what I found out that time is he didn't have driver's license, and that's the reason they wouldn't let him drive. But anyway, so we jogged back to the car. My friend opens the door, puts his hand in the back of the seat, and he feels around in the trunk, and he gets the keys, and then we get in the car, and we take off, and we head back to the neighborhood. And as we're going, we're right here on Ash, so he just cuts in the first alley, and he takes the alley all the way up toward the old Tiger Stadium. And when you get to the end, you got the service drive, but you don't get to come out on the service drive. You got to make a hard right. And there's a factory, and then there's a big wooden telephone pole right on the corner of the factory. So what he did, he went to turn, and he turned a little too soon, just like he did when he turned off of Grand River on the Trumbull, ran over the sidewalk. But anyways, he turned too soon, and the telephone pole caught my quarter panel of my car, and it basically just helped slide the back end of the car around so we was facing the right way. And then he just went out that way and then got on the freeway and went, to Livernois and stuff like that. And we made it home. But that was another incident me and him had. And but we made it home and stuff like that because we just wasn't gonna walk that far. That was just a long way to go. And also the Detroit police, shout out to the Detroit police because I don't know how cool they are today because I ain't had no encounters with them. But back in the day, all of them were pretty cool. You know what I mean? If you did right, they was going to do you right. It's going to be fair. You know what I mean? But if you try to give them a hard time, they would let you know what a hard time's all about, basically. And also, my aunt used to go with a Detroit police officer back in them days. Also. She used to date one, stuff like that. But anyways, shout out to the Detroit police. And that's another incident me and Bo had. We had plenty, and I can get into some more of them stories on another video. But yeah, it was just it was a trip. We were just always, doing something. You know what I mean? But, all in all, you can ask them. Also, all in all, we all had a good time. And, everybody was homies. Everybody was friends. And, some of our friends, we had different encounters together and it's, had some disagreements and everything. But as it stands today, we all good with each other. You know what I mean? So there ain't no hard feelings with nobody or nothing like that. But it's just all part of, growing up and going through life and stuff like that, where, you're going to have a few incidents with some friends or some disagreements or something like that, or, things like that dude ran off with my girl and stuff, even though, like I said, I was 12, he was like 16 or 17, but things like that happen, but there ain't no hard feelings with nobody, and it's all good. So that being said, I'm gonna leave it right here, and I hope y'all enjoyed the story that I'm telling you, and as much as I enjoy giving the story out. And I appreciate y'all listening. And always back Detroit's darkest times. All you're going to get is 100% true. And just interesting stories all the time. And we like to keep it real on this channel. So that being said, I appreciate everybody. Support the channel. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Subscribe, hit the like and the notification bell, and be looking out for the next one. We appreciate you. We out.